Hey shooters, it's John with Sun and Shadow. Have you ever noticed that Nightforce is one of the most popular optics that we see on the range, yet we hardly ever get to see Triggercam video using these reticles and optics? Well, there's a reason for that. The shims that come with the Triggercam, there's a whole bunch of them, but all of them have a straight wall tube that is going to fit on straight wall optics, on the eye bell of a straight wall optic. The issue that we have with Nightforce optics in particular is that almost all of the eye bells on a Nightforce optic has a slight taper to it. What ends up happening is that you're trying to tighten this straight wall tube onto a cone, and if you're not careful, you can actually break your Triggercam mechanism. You can see that I've actually broken mine and had to come up with another fix for it. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to tighten this onto an ever smaller cone, and that ends up not working out. And what ends up happening for you as the user is your Triggercam will start to rotate or it will not stay still, and you'll have trouble getting good video using the Triggercam when it's connected to one of the Nightforce optics. So this can be a problem, especially because if you're trying to build content or you're using your Triggercam as a training tool, which is a very effective training tool. For me, I use it for both training and I use it for content, so we need to be able to have our Triggercam connect to a Nightforce optic without having this problem of the Triggercam rotating or being insecure or breaking. Like I said, I've already done some mine. So what I've done is I have taken the top 3 Nightforce optics that we see on the range, the Nightforce NX8 1-8, the Attacker 1-8, and also the Attacker 4-16 that we've got back here on our Sons of Liberty Mark I. And I have built custom shims for each one of these optics. You can see that they're actually a little bit different for each one. The eye bell shape and taper on each one of these optics is actually a little bit different, so we ended up having to come up with several different shims in order to fit each one with your Triggercam. So you can see here, the first one we've got is our Nightforce Attacker 1-8. That is going to fit or be a really great fit on your Nightforce Attacker 1-8. We also have one for the 4-16. One of my favorites to use because we have the Mil XT reticle inside of this. Big fan of Mil XT. And then finally we have this one here. This one's a pretty thick one that we've built for the NX8 1-8. It's got such a small tube on it that we needed a pretty thick shim in order to fit on there. Now every single one of these has been reverse engineered from the Nightforce scope that it fits on. We've got a taper in here, so if you actually feel inside of this shim, there will be a taper in there that you can feel, and it'll actually fit perfectly over each one of these optics that it was designed for. So for example, this one here is for our Nightforce, our Attacker 1-8. We will slide this guy on, and then we can put our Triggercam on top of that. And it's already a pretty good fit. And we can just tighten this guy down. And now you've got your Triggercam mounted up to your Attacker 1-8, and you can see the reticle in there very well. Now the only one that I really need to have any kind of notes on is going to be the thick one that we built for the Nightforce NX8 1-8. One of the issues that we have designing something for this optic is that it's so small and it has such a big taper on it that there's a couple things we need to discuss. First of all, it's going to be a little tight trying to get this guy on there because the taper, the smaller part of the taper is on this side and the open end is on this side. So you've got a lot of material that we're trying to work. You just need to open this guy up just enough that it'll work onto your NX8, and then you can see that we can slide it forward just like that. And then when we go to put this guy on, it'll be a good fit still, and we can tighten that in. Again, hopefully your Triggercam is not as broken as mine is. I had to kind of jury rig mine, in order to get this thing to work again. Basically what I did was just take a screw that would fit through the hole that they have on their tightening mechanism, and I put a little nut on the end so that I can just tighten this thing up and still make it useful. And one of the things that you might notice here about the way that I've got this set up is that the cattail on the Nightforce NX8 is going to run into your Triggercam. So you're very limited in the amount of zoom that you're going to get if you have the Triggercam on there. So you might only get like 2 or 3 magnification that you'll be able to use depending on which side you put your Triggercam on and where the cattail ends up. So what I've done on this particular NX8 is I've just removed the cattail so I can still use the entire range of the zoom ring. But it just makes the zoom a little bit slower. So just something to know. If you're using this at a competition or for training value or something like that, it shouldn't be too big of a deal for you there. But this is really the only one that has any notes that we need to add to it. The other two, the Attacker 1-8 and the Attacker 4-16, both work exactly like the included shims with the Triggercam. This will just pop right on to your scope, and then you can put your Triggercam on, tighten it down, and you won't have to worry about it rotating or anything. It'll be a tight, concise fit. Everything's going to work great, and you can start building out your Triggercam content or use it for training value, which I find to be the most valuable use of the Triggercam, let's say. These are available now at sunandshadow.com. You can find them on our site. And if you have any questions, just go ahead and drop them in the comments, and we will catch you guys out on the range.